Hi everybody, and welcome back to Cardiac Radio for Teens. For those of you who don't know, Cardiac Radio for Teens is a place where teens can come together with other teens to learn about Spiritist teachings and topics in a way that makes more sense to us and is more relatable to us as teenagers in today's society. For over 2 years now, we've been reading through the Spirits book together, page by page, question by question, and going through it to not understand everything. We're not going to understand everything the first time or even the second time or even the third time we read the Spirits book, but to go through it and get a basic understanding of what Spiritism is. And we are actually almost done. We're reaching the end of the book, so we're going to pick up today and continue on and further our knowledge on Spiritism. So we were in the chapter talking about earthly joys and sorrows. And in that chapter, this week, we're going to start off with antipathic relationships. So what these relationships are the opposite of like sympathetic, so they're antipathetic. So question 939. Since sympathetic spirits are spontaneously attracted to each other, how is that this love is often one-sided, that the most sincere affection can be met with indifference or even repulsion, and that the deepest affection of two individuals for one another may change into dislike or even hatred? So here they're asking, so how can we have a sympathetic relationship, so love someone and be really close to someone, but how come sometimes that's not the case? How come sometimes you have all this sympathy, you have all this love for someone, but it's kind of one-sided, or they don't love you back, or vice versa, or even if you guys are in a really good relationship, and then then you aren't anymore, or like the love kind of goes away, the affection kind of goes away, or maybe the liking turns into a dislike. So why does this happen? If we already have this sympathetic relationship, how can it turn bad? How can this go away? And the spirits answered, "It is an atonement, but only a short-lived one. Moreover, many individuals believe that they are desperately in love because they judge one another based on appearances only. But when they're forced to live together, they soon discover that their affection was nothing more than a passing whim. It is not enough to be taken by someone whom you imagine to be endowed with all sorts of qualities. You can only determine the worth of the appearances that have captivated you by actually living together. On the other hand, how many of these relationships that at first seem as though they never could become sympathetic grow over time into a tender and lasting affection, based on the respect that grows between the parties through the development of more complete familiarity with each other's qualities? You must not forget that it is the spirit that loves and not the body, and when the illusion of physical attraction dissipates, the spirit sees reality." So here, firstly, they say this is an atonement. So we know an atonement is something that we're fixing. Like a wrong, we made a mistake, so now we have to fix it. We have to go and repair it. So this is an atonement. So maybe we got into a big fight with this person. So now we're going through this atonement of showing this person a lot of affection. Even if they might not show us affection, we're showing them a lot of affection and giving them a lot of love to make up for maybe a time that we were mean to them. But that's a short-lived thing, because it's not going to last forever that way. And then they also said, but moreover, some people think they're desperately in love, but they don't even know the person. Like sometimes you see someone, you say, oh, that person's cute. That doesn't mean you're in love with them because you don't know any of their qualities or anything about them. So that's the difference, is sometimes you're just judging it off of appearance or judging it off of one thing, but when you actually start living together, or you actually start doing more things together, you realize, wait, we're not really that similar, and it wasn't really anything crazy. They just were cute, or they just were funny or something, one thing, but it might not actually have been the best situation or the best match for you. So sometimes people think that they're desperately in love, but then once they start being with that person more, they realize, wait, no, this is not what I wanted, this is not the right thing. But it also can work the other way too. We might meet someone and we say, oh, like, they don't really seem like they're going to be similar to us. They don't really have many things in common with us. But then once we start living with those people and growing with those people, and we start realizing, wow, they do have these good qualities about them, and we do get along on all these things. And we see that a lot, like maybe if you go to college and you have a roommate, and at first you guys don't get along, but eventually you start getting along and becoming friends. So that can grow over time too. So it can be both ways. Maybe in the beginning, you're very obsessed and you're best friends, or you're dating, blah, blah. and then you realize, wait, this isn't exactly right. Or maybe in the beginning you're a little iffy about it, but then you learn, oh wow, we do have all these things in common. So it could be both ways. So then at the end, it's very important that they mention, so you must not forget that it is the spirit that loves and not the body. So it's not about the physical attractions, because the body, we're just attracted to physical things, but it's about the spirit. The spirit's the one who loves. So it's not about physical things, it's about the person's qualities and the reality of that person. And then the spirits continue and they say, there are two kinds of affection, that of the body and that of the soul, and they are often mistaken for one another. The affection of the soul, when pure and sympathetic, is lasting, while that of the body is ephemeral. This is why people who think that they are loved eternally often despise one another when the illusion fades away. So, the pure love that's going to last is the one from the spirit, is the one where when we're looking at the qualities of someone and nothing about their exterior, nothing about their physical body, but that's when it's going to be pure and sympathetic and lasting. But when it's just like an attraction to someone physically, then we're not going deeper into those person's qualities or what that person's actually like, and that's oftentimes when it doesn't work out so great because we're just looking at the physical, because what really is going to be lasting is that spiritual love. Question 940. Is a lack of sympathy between individuals who are destined to live together a source of sorrow, and one that is more bitter because it poisons an entire life? So now we're talking about, okay, so now you live with these people, or it could be your family, or it could be someone who you eventually live with, a roommate, or someone you're dating, but there's a lack of sympathy. So it's not this great relationship. You don't have a sympathetic relationship, but you're destined to live together. You can't really get away from it. So is this, so they're saying, is this a source of sorrow? Like, can you be upset that you can't really get along with that person? And is it one that's very bitter because it's going to be there for your entire life? And the spirits answered, it is very bitter, but it is usually a misfortune of your own doing. First, your laws are at fault, because how can you imagine that God intends that people who dislike each other should live together? Second, you yourself are to blame, because you often seek the satisfaction of your pride and ambition in those relationships, rather than the happiness of mutual affection. In such cases, you undergo the natural consequences of your folly. So what they're saying is that, yes, say you get married to someone or you move in with someone, and now you're living with them, but now you guys aren't affectionate towards each other and it's not sympathetic. So now it is a very bitter situation, but you only have yourself to blame for that. It's the misfortune of your own doing. Because one, they're saying our laws, and especially when this book was written, it wasn't okay for people to get a divorce. So if you got married to someone, you had to stay in that relationship for your whole life. So now your whole life got, like they say here, poisoned. Your whole life you had to go through this now because you couldn't get a divorce. So here they're saying, first, our laws are wrong, because how can we imagine that God is like, oh no, if you don't like each other, but you're forced to live together? God doesn't want that for us, right? God isn't forcing us to live with people we dislike or we can't be compassionate towards yet. So those laws that we couldn't get divorced, those were also like hurting these situations. And now we can see that even from the time this book was written to now, we can see that we have progressed a little bit, because now you can get a divorce and you don't have to be stuck in that situation for your whole entire life. But then they also saying, second, you're to blame, because a lot of the times we're the ones that do these ambitious things, that if someone proposes to you, you say yes, and you're not really thinking about everything else, or maybe it's too soon, or where you're going to live, or are you really similar, are you really a great match? So sometimes you just get ambitious and you just want to be that one that's ahead of everyone else, or you want to be doing cool things. So you get ambitious and you do things, and you weren't really thinking about the consequences of what you're going to be stuck with. And then you lose focus of what a relationship really is that you're focusing on mutual affection. And in that case, it's just your own fault that you're in that situation. So it is bitter and it is a problem, but we have to try and prevent those problems so it doesn't happen instead of just letting it happen and then being like, oh my God, how do I get out of this? We should be more aware and not get ourselves into those situations. And then there's the second part to this question, and it says, but in such cases, is there generally an innocent victim? So are there people who are innocently a victim in this situation? And the spirits answered, yes, one for whom is a heavy atonement, but the accountability for such unhappiness falls upon the individual who causes it. If the light of truth reaches the victim's soul, faith in the future proves consolation. The cause of these private troubles disappear as your prejudgments are dispelled. So there are some people here, they're saying, so are there victims of this that are innocent? It's not that they put themselves in that situation, they just got stuck in that situation. And they say, yeah, those are the ones who are going through those atonements, who they might not have done anything immediately in this life, but they're going through this to make up for something that they did in the past. And so while they're doing it, they're going to be, so the accountability is, it falls upon the individual who caused it. So if they caused this situation maybe in a previous life or 10 previous lives, then they're the ones that caused this situation anyway, even if it wasn't directly. But the point of these things are for us to learn and grow for them. So what they're saying is, if we do realize, if there is a light that we realize, the light of truth that we realize and we feel it and we see it, then we are going to have that consolation, and we're going to get helped, and those troubles are going to disappear as soon as we fix it, as soon as we pass that trial. So it's not that we're going to be stuck in it forever, although it might be horrible. But so even if people didn't you think, wow, that person did nothing right now to do that, maybe it's just they're making it for something that they did wrong. It's an atonement. And now we're on to the next section in this chapter, and this one's titled Fear of Death. Question 941. The fear of death perplexes many. Where does this fear come from if they have before them the whole future? So a lot of people fear dying. So they're saying, so why is this? If we know, if in us we know that there's this future, why are we so afraid of dying? And the spirits answered, this fear is misplaced, but what do you expect? People have been thoroughly brainwashed since childhood to believe in heaven and hell, and who have retained this belief, along with the notion that most likely they will go to the latter, because whatever belongs to human life is a moral sin for the soul, are understandably fearful. However, most people who are indoctrinated at an early age manage to throw it aside when they grow up, if they are capable of forming a little judgment. They become atheists or materialists because they are unable to accept it. Thus, the natural effect, though unintentional, of such teachings is to make people believe that there is nothing beyond this present life. People who persist in their mistaken childhood beliefs fear eternal fire that burn without destroying. So here what they're saying is that people fear death, and it is misplaced. But what do we expect? Because in a lot of cultures and a lot of religions, people are taught right from the beginning, that you're going to go to heaven or hell. And a lot of us, because we end up doing a lot of wrong things in our lives, we're doing all these wrong things, so we're going to end up in hell. And we're going to, burn, and they paint this, miserable picture of what hell is. So, of course, we're all going to be terrified of dying if you think, wow, I'm going to hell and I'm going to burn forever. So then you get that fear of dying. But then, they're saying that there are people who since they grew up with that, they think, no, there's no way we're all gonna just sit there and burn. So then they kind of turn into atheists or materialists because they don't want to accept that, right? We don't want to accept that. We don't want to accept, oh, that's it. The only option is to just go burn for eternity. So and then those people, they choose to believe in nothing beyond, because if they believe in nothing, it's better than, because they don't believe that there's going to be this heaven and hell, so they just believe in nothing and beyond. So then we see that so that when people are growing up with all of these thoughts and ideas, ever since you're little until the day you die, you become very afraid of what's to come. And then the spirits continued. Death should not instill fear in virtuous people, because, with faith, they have the certainty of a future life. Hope leads them to extend a better life than the present one, and charity, which has guided their actions and gives them the assurance that they will not encounter anyone that they may have reason to dread in the spirit world. So, but here they're saying, but besides all that, we shouldn't fear death, because we know that if we have faith that there's a future life, that there's something out there for us. We have hope, which leads us to living a better life, and charity, and we're helping one another, and we're doing the right things, and reassuring that we're doing the right things, and we're working towards evolving ourselves, and we're going to be okay afterwards. So we need to start thinking more of those things instead of thinking of this heaven and hell and being scared of where you're going and all those beliefs. And then Allan Kardec put his own comment in, and he says, "Carnally minded people, more attracted by physical life than by the spiritual one, only know material pains and pleasures. The only happiness they feel is in the fleeting satisfaction of desires. Their minds, constantly occupied with the difficulties of present life and painfully affected by them, are tortured with perpetual anxiety. For such individuals, the thought of death is terrifying because it doubts about the future, and because they have to leave all their feelings and hopes behind when they leave Earth." So here what they're saying is that when we're very materialistic type of people, and they're saying carnal, so very in the body material, we're more attracted to the physical life. So the things that we think bring us happiness are material things. So if we're scared to die, because then we're leaving all of our material things, all the things that make us happy, and everything that we do is revolves around this material stuff that we're leaving. So that's another reason why a lot of people are just scared to leave all that, because that's everything to them. And because of that, they're so scared of what would be after, because what would be after when you don't have any of that stuff? And that's why we see in ancient Egypt that people were buried with a bunch of material things so that they could hopefully have that with them, because that was what was important. And then Allan Kardec continues, "Spiritually minded people who have raised themselves above the artificial wants created by the passions experience a joy that is unknown to the carnal-minded, even in this lower life. The moderation of their desire calms their spirit and gives them serenity. Happy in the good they do, life has no disappointments for them, and it glides over their conscience lightly, without leaving any painful impressions." So when we are more spiritually minded, even though on this earth we know that none of us are super evolved, none of us are at that state of perfection, but even here, those ones who are raising themselves above the material things, they experience a joy that everyone else is not experiencing, because they're not attached to these materialistic things. And when something material happens, or when they don't have the latest material things, they aren't getting upset or hurt by these things. And if those people are working hard, and they know they're working hard, and they know they're doing good, then they're happy, because they know that's going to be enough for them to be happy in the future. And they're not going to have these painful impressions, because little things that happen aren't going to affect them as much, because they're elevating themselves to a higher state of thinking and a better mindset than most. Question 942. Some persons may find this advice somewhat mundane. Won't they see them as being commonplace and hackneyed truths? Won't they say that the true secret to happiness is being able to endure one's misfortune? So some people may think that so what they're saying is this advice may seem very ordinary, very mundane, but they're saying, isn't the secret to happiness being able to bear your misfortunes? So even the things that go wrong, you're able to endure them. You're able to say, okay, this went wrong, but let's keep pushing through. So isn't that the secret to happiness? And the Spirit answered, "Many people adopt this view, but some are similar to individuals who fall ill and demand to be cured without changing their habits. Although their physicians prescribed corrective diets, they continue the indulgence that aggravated their conditions in the first place." So many people, yeah, we do have this viewpoint that you just have to be able to go through the misfortunes and that's fine. But if we're sick, if we have an illness and we're just going to say, oh no, I can just keep going through this, and we don't take the proper medicine and we just keep doing the same thing, then we're not going to get better. So there are some things that just because we think, oh, we just have to push through, we just have to endure it. No, we can get help sometimes. We can get that medicine. We can reach out for help to be happy. But yeah, we are trying to work through our things. But that doesn't mean we're not changing ourselves. We have to be evolving and changing ourselves. And that's the end of that section. And now on to the next section, which is distaste for life, suicide. So distaste is like not liking. So question 943. What causes the distaste for life that sometimes takes hold of people without any discernible reason? So why can people just be so upset with life in general for like not really that much of a reason? Like you don't really know the reason, but you just feel unhappy. And the spirits answered, idleness, lack of conviction, and often satiety. What people use their abilities in the pursuit of some useful aim, that is, in line with their natural aptitudes, their work is not dull. Life passes quickly, and they are able to bear the reversals of pain of life patiently, and with resignation. They look forward to a more solid and lasting happiness in the future. So what they're saying here is that sometimes we feel this distaste for life, that we're not satisfied, we're not happy with life, and that's because we're being idle. We're not doing enough. Maybe we're not doing anything. So there's like a lack of things that you're working for, striving for. So we should so people who are taking up a lot of things, who are pursuing stuff, who are doing charity work, doing their work, when you have a lot of things lined up, you're kind of just going through life and things are going fast and you're like, wow. And then next thing you know, it's like a year's already done. But if you're not doing anything, then every day is just dragging on and it's just boring. And then you get this distaste for life. You're not happy. So we have to make sure to keep ourselves busy and keep ourselves always doing something, even if it's reading a book or volunteering somewhere or just being more focused in school, taking on more classes or taking on a job or whatever it is. We have to keep ourselves doing better things, because when we sit there doing nothing for a long time, that's when we're going to get bored and we're not going to be happy, because nothing good's going to come out of doing nothing. Question 944. Do human beings have the right to dispose of their own life? So, as human beings, do we have the right to take our own lives, to commit suicide? And the spirits answered, no, only God has that right. Voluntary suicide is a violation of God's laws. So no, we don't have the rights to do that as human beings. That is not something that we can say, oh, I want to dispose of my own life. No, God is the one that has that plan for us, and God's the only one that has the right to do that. So suicide is a violation of God's laws. Like we talked about, we want to follow God's laws, and when we don't follow God's laws, we're going to have to make up for those things that we do. And suicide is going to be one that's much harder to make up for than others. And then there's a second part to this question, and it says, is suicide always voluntary? And the spirit said, no. When a person undergoes a phase of insanity, kills him or herself, they have no real knowledge of the action being committed. So there are some people who they go a phase of insanity that they're not really like conscious. They're not really aware. They don't have knowledge of what's happening, of the action that's occurring. So in those cases, it's not really voluntary. Question 945. What should we think of people who commit suicide because they are sick of life? And the spirits answered, imprudent people, why did they not seek out useful work? Life would not seem so heavy to them. So we just have to, for those people who commit suicide or who are thinking of it, we should help guide them to seek to do more things, because they might just not be doing enough things or not be doing the right things and not be happy with that. But maybe if they found the right things to do and to keep themselves busy and to kind of show them like the purpose of them, oh, you're doing this great work or you're helping these people and having something to do, because it goes back to that being idle, that doing nothing, that we're like, oh, I'm just bored, I just don't want to be here, nothing's going right, because we're not doing anything. So maybe we should seek out useful work, things that are helping people, and while you're helping people, you feel that good effect on you as well. And maybe that could have helped those people. Question 946. What should we think of people who resort to suicide to escape from the troubles and disappointments of this world? And so that question is pretty straightforward, but again, so thinking of people who they use suicide because they're going through troubles and they're disappointed and they're not happy in this life, so they want to just run away from it, get rid of that. And the spirits answered, poor spirits who lack the courage to bear the unhappiness of life. God helps those who suffer valiantly, but not those who have neither strength nor courage. The struggles of life are trials or atonements, and those who bear them with resignation are happy because they receive a great reward. Those who believe that their well-being is a result of chance or luck are quite unfortunate. Chance or luck, to borrow their expression, may favor them for a time, but afterwards the emptiness in those words become apparent. So it does seem hard when we're going through things and you think, I can't get through this, I can't. And we all go through that. Even myself, I have some classes that are so hard that I think, wow, I'm never going to do good in this, I'm never going to overcome this. But we can't have that attitude. We need to turn it around and realize, okay, I have this class that's hard, I'm struggling through it, but we need to try and get through it, because if we do get through it, and when we get through it, because we will, even if I fail that class one time, we'll take it again and then try again. So we can relate it to simple terms like that, but we can also have it on a big scale. But we're going to go through that trial, and eventually when we pass it, we'll feel really good about ourselves, and we'll feel that reward because, wow, we finally passed that thing that we were struggling with. And even though you want to give up, when we give up, we're not going to get that reward ever. If you just give up and you just sit there, we're not going to get that reward. So we need to, even though it might seem really hard, we need to push through and keep going, because these are the trials that were put in our lives for us to overcome and help us become better people. And people who say that they just have good fortune by chance or by luck, then that eventually is going to run out. So we want to make sure that we're really doing things not by luck or not by chance, but we're really doing them and we really have these things that we will be rewarded for. And then there's the second part of this question, and it says, are people who drive an unhappy person to commit this desperate act accountable for the consequences of their action? And the spirits answered, yes, and it is severe because they have to answer for those actions as for a murder. So here the question is saying, so people who are kind of maybe like helping that person to be like, yeah, you know what, you should commit suicide, you should do this, or even if it's like maybe an artist who sings about it, or maybe someone in a TV show, someone who created that, or a book, or anything that is influencing you to do that, driving you to do that, they're gonna have to also pay for those consequences of like assisting and driving that person to do that. And it's going to be severe, because that is like being accountable for a murder. So that is a severe thing, to be also driving that person and kind of pushing that person to that point where they commit suicide. So those persons are also going to be very accountable and very responsible, and they're going to have a lot of work to do to make up for that and correct that. So that's where we'll leave off today. And we'll continue with that section next week. And I know that this is a very heavy topic, and if anyone feels like they need to talk more about it with someone, if you want to talk more about it with me, feel free to email me, or I can point you in the right direction to other people that you want to talk to, maybe an adult, maybe other teens that you want to talk to, other spiritist teens to become connected with. If you want to talk more about this topic, because it is a very heavy topic, feel free to contact me at cardiacradioforteens@gmail.com. And it is very important for us to be aware of these situations happening and not ignore it. So maybe if you know friends that might be thinking that said something to you, talk to someone about it, because it's something that we don't want to ignore. Especially we don't want to be, even if we're not thinking about suicide ourselves, we don't want to be those people that are that are going to serve for that are going to be accountable for not helping or even driving that person. So if you guys at all if you all want to talk to me about anything, want me to point you in directions to other people to talk to, please feel free to email me or contact me. Before we leave off, I'd like to read our message for today's date, October 16th. Reflection. With an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. We are constantly searching for knowledge, for answers to questions about the world we live in and the universe beyond. We wander through libraries, page through thick texts, spend hours at the computer conducting painstaking research and consulting with experts. Sometimes in our search for knowledge, we also need to allow ourselves times for simple, quiet reflections. The answer that comes to us in these moments may not be scientific, but they may help satisfy our deep longing to better understanding and meanings of our lives. I need to give myself time to reflect on my life. No direction, no must, no authority, just quiet and thought. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to talk about at all related to what we're talking about or not, feel free to email me at cardiacradioforteens@gmail.com and I'll get back to you right away. I'm Bia, and this has been Cardiac Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening. This has been Cardiac Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.